So continuing on the 27th day of the Awakening Intensive, now the quantum class, so the quantum body class with the title Quantum Healing. And I'm very much looking forward to see what happens during this class. So I'm happy that you made it back from your little time travel and a time travel experiment that we did, and that's really lovely. So this is the appointed place where we actually come to, and that is a moment in ourselves in which we recognize the stillness and truth of who we are. And that can only happen in this moment. So you made it exactly to this moment in order for that to happen. Which is great. And if you would accept my words like completely, you would have no need for this class whatsoever, because you would reside exactly in the nowness of this moment. And the nowness is not a moment at all. It is like what is happening now. The present moment is happening now, and that's an experience of your aliveness. And so today we look at different things. So there's some real quantum physics that comes along, and so we have a couple of visitors again today, and one of them being Cosmoknowledge. It's called Cosmoknowledge. It is a channel on YouTube. I'm just saying that some of the movies of the little videos that they have are interesting to get an idea about how things are seen now in quantum physics. I'm not saying that it is true or it is the best or it is whatever. No, it's like expressed that I can even understand it. It's more like that. And so I hope it will happen for you too, that you understand a little bit of the mind stretch that is happening. So this class is really about quantum physics, in that sense of quantum healing, because it is like you stretch the elasticity of your mind, expanding it even further and further and further, so that you can receive more and more light and love. And that's in fact the purpose of this coming together. So it is more like oh yes, why not? Yeah, why not be open to receive some information that can really show me something? Otherwise you would not know it exists, or you would not know that your mind is able to do that. So a completely open mind is a completely open mind. And so that idea we use, and I use in the videos, in the information that I give. So it's not setting up a new quantum healing dogma or quantum healing. This is the way we're going to do this kind of thing, but more like there's playfulness connected to it. Not just playing with ideas, but more like, well, to train your mind to be flexible and open, instead of thinking like, oh, I don't understand, so I'm not putting any attention to this. No, it's more like you have no idea what you can receive as information. You have no idea what relates to you and how many references are connected to, opening your mind and discovering more. So that is so great about this. And I'm speaking from my own experience, of course. It is like I had no idea what my mind is capable of doing in terms of openness. That's unbelievable. So that means direct communication. Wow, that is faster than the speed of light, where we're talking about today. It's like it's faster than the speed of light. It's instantaneous communication. And if you never heard of it, or you never experienced it, you're mistaken. Because the thoughts that you are thinking have an immediate effect on everything. And you literally create a world out of the ideas that you hold, that you think. And suddenly, boom, there is something manifested. So using your mind as an open, say, vessel, or letting it be a part of your, say, in spirit, of your inspiration. So it's like inspirited, say, using your Holy Spirit to do the communication, or to inform you literally directly in your pace. Yeah, that's something that you discover too in your spiritual awakening. Like, it's related to an openness of mind, a thing that you thought it is not possible. Like, we were raised, maybe you too, I was raised in a church in which there was something like, okay, so you die and then you go to heaven. Never anyone told me that I can have a direct experience of God right now, or that I can have experiences of heaven as a state of mind. Nobody ever told me that. So it was like, that's not possible. We don't even talk about it. That's not possible, so it doesn't exist. And it will happen that way because I tell you that it is like that. And that was never acceptable to me, but it's even less when I started to experiment with it and opening my mind to possibilities. Like, if anything is possible in God, I want to experience what that anything is. I want to see more and more parts of that. Like, why not instantaneous communication? It sounds like so natural to me. Like, what I think has an immediate effect, or I can feel my connection with my brother instantaneously. I don't even have to, say, exchange one word in order to feel connected. So that relates, of course, to the quantum field that we have been talking about. Like, if there's a quantum field in which there can be no difference between two objects, it's like it's all the same stuff, so to speak, and it's all happening at the same time. So there's not even a time difference. Like, there can only be one moment, and there can only be one place, and it must be right here, right now, in this moment. All else is imagined. It's completely imagined. So that was just a little introduction. So we go quickly to the next part, and that is the participants in this class received all like a PDF with some background information about tachyons, because in say theoretical quantum physics, it is thought of as the tachyon who can travel faster than light. But why would you? Or how does that work? Or, well, let me at least hear something about it. So this is exactly what we're going to do. So for a moment, I'm going to show you a video from it's probably 6-7 minutes or so. And it's a video about the tachyons traveling faster than the speed of light, and the interesting consequences that it can have. So, this one's a bit too fast.
Than the speed of light. The universal speed of light is 300,000 kilometers a second. In Einstein's theory of special relativity, only massless particles like the photon travel at the speed of light. All other particles travel slower. Theoretically, more physicists believe that faster-than-light particles cannot exist because they violate known laws of physics. If such particles existed and could carry signals faster than light, then according to Einstein's theory of relativity, they would break causality, leading to logical dilemmas like the grandfather paradox. So, does this mysterious particle really exist? Well, let's find out. You might have come across the term tachyons in science fiction and faster-than-light travel or communication. The term tachyon, which comes from the Greek word tachys, which means fast, was coined by the late Gerald Feinberg of Columbia University. According to physical theory, tachyons are hypothetical particles that travel faster than light and have imaginary masses. They are merely hypothetical since they break several established physics laws, such as general theory of relativity, and their existence indicates that the theory that contains them is unstable. Let's look more closely at what hypothetical tachyons are, what they mean, and how they relate to other physical theories. The existence of tachyons can lead to paradoxes involving time travel. Normally, events are determined solely by what has occurred in the past. However, features of Einstein's theory suggest that a tachyon could be identified before it formed. Because the presence of a tachyon would contradict Einstein's extraordinarily successful theory, a claim of tachyon detection would necessitate extraordinary evidence. The mass of tachyon particles is fictitious. Any particles within an imaginary mass will spontaneously decay, indicating that they do not include tachyonic particles or have an imaginary mass. This is known as tachyon condensation, in which a system can lower its energy by producing particles spontaneously. It was once thought that tachyonic particles might move faster than light. In addition, in a 1967 publication, it was postulated that tachyonic particles might be quanta of fields with an imaginary mass that propagate more quickly than light, which was the first time such a particle was stated and named a tachyon. Something to note is that we often speak of tachyonic fields instead of tachyonic particles. In modern physics, all fundamental particles are regarded as fields with excitations. The consequences of a tachyonic field in known reality is that it is unstable and will undergo tachyonic condensation, resulting in symmetry breaking and the creation of new particles. Does Einstein's theory of relativity state that nothing can travel faster than light? Well, it simply argues that nothing with a mass greater than 0 can travel to the speed of light or higher, because this would demand infinite energy and result in an infinite mass. Only massless particles, like photons and gluons, can travel at the speed of light. As a result, according to relativity theory, a particle will not be able to accelerate faster than the speed of light. But what if it was always that fast, from the beginning of time? What if it was created in this manner during the Big Bang? If such a particle existed, it would be unable to slow down to slower than the speed of light. It would have the strange property of requiring less energy as its velocity increased, hence approaching its lowest energy state as it reached infinity speed. To slow down to the speed of light, on the other hand, would require infinite energy, and hence would never be able to cross that speed barrier. As a result, particles traveling at different speeds on either side of the speed of light encounter a two-way barrier. That would not violate the laws of relativity, but it would have some strange properties. One peculiar property is that tachyons would have an imaginary rest mass, assuming that energy must be a real and positive value, as the equation on the screen shows. If the denominator is an imaginary number, the numerator must also be an imaginary number for the result to be an actual number. The other strange property is that depending on the relative arrangements between the frames in space-time, an observer could see tachyons travel the other way through time, thereby seeing them before they are produced in the observer's frame. Fun fact, while particles with imaginary mass are called tachyons, ordinary particles with a non-zero mass that travel slower than light are called bradyons or tardyon, and massless particles are called luxons.
So what does this have to do with waking up? And why would you... Wait, there's still something running here. Sorry, I have to turn off my my YouTube here. Okay, so So I'm getting to the point later. I'm still using this to fall into some kind of almost like a chaos, but it's an organized chaos, I hope. And so this is essential in the say elasticity training of your mind to check this out. So that's why we looked at it. So there will be more. One of the things that you heard was this, is like you can, if you travel faster than the light, that would mean that you could see something. When you see something, you see something before it is made, for instance. And this is interesting, so keep that in mind. And I will get back to that later, when it all comes together. So the other part that I love to read is now very specifically about time-related miracle principles that we work with in miracle healing, in quantum healing if you want. So one of them, I have my little Miracle Healer's Handbook here. Here is one of the miracle principles. Jesus says this: I inspire all miracles, which are really intercessions. They intercede for your holiness and make your perceptions holy. And here it is: by placing you beyond the physical laws, they raise you into the sphere of celestial order. In this order you are perfect. So that is one. The miracle is a learning device that lessens the need of time. It establishes an out-of-pattern time interval, not under the usual laws of time. In this sense, it is timeless. So the miracle is a learning device that lessens the need for time. It establishes an out-of-pattern time interval, not under the usual laws of time. In this sense, it is timeless. And now here, watch this. With your quantum mind, it sounds completely different. That's really pretty amazing. Miracles are both beginnings and endings. Whoa. And so they alter the temporal order. They are always affirmations of rebirth, which seem to go back, but really go forward. They undo the past in the present, and thus release the future. They undo the past in the present, and thus releasing the future. Well, that's really great. That's really great. So these are some miracle principles, and I will put this all together in a post on the website, because it's great to read all these aspects, all these parts in the whole story, to say come to an expansion in your awareness about what is possible and how this works. Not that you have to understand it, but at least dive into the total incredibleness beyond your understanding. Say the peace that passes understanding is also a peace that is so overwhelming and so expanded that you would that you could never understand it, but it still is there. So this is a bit like the sphere where we hang out today, in the sense of idea and experience, if you want. So maybe it's getting to know these ideas so you get familiar with them. I can imagine that, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. So it is a real expansion in that sense already then. So it starts with that, getting to know the ideas, then seeing them at work. It's like, oh my God, if you experience a miracle, you know that it has nothing to do with time. Suddenly you feel the direct communication with your brother, and it has nothing to do with time whatsoever. So it's like that's a whole different state of being, a whole different state of consciousness. So that is possible. But if you think that you have to be a saint in order to facilitate or to provide or to undergo a miracle, then that has to happen first, and you first have to become a saint. But if you think like, okay, wait a minute, everything is possible in God. I'm created by God, so I've every reason to accept for myself that anything is possible. I don't have to limit myself in any way, not in my experience, not in my ideas, not in my in my relationship to every aspect of creation. Okay, so now we continue with the next. This is also like an elasticity of mind kind of exercise activity. And we have as guest Deepak Chopra coming to us with the book Quantum Healing. And there's a very specific thing that I like to share. This is all about like intelligence, like the active intelligence and the silent intelligence. He differs the two, and he says there's a gap between them. So the active intelligence is knowing what to do, how to do things, but the silent intelligence is more like inspiration, intuition, and on and on and on. So this is just as a basic beginning. And he has some, I'm using this actually for this, is that while reading it, I actually feel there's like a very practical relationship that puts it down to earth, even though it is mind-blowing at the same time, or you can hear it in any way that you want. So it is not limiting in any way. That's why I use it. Got it well organized this time. Okay, so yeah, let's do the intelligence first. So and then there's another experiment he likes to share with us, and this is this. Okay, the mystery of the gap is the chapter, but it's on 195. Science finds itself skeptical and largely baffled when such questions come up. Here one of the questions was, what about the intention to heal or the intention to promote peace in your surroundings? Science finds itself skeptical and largely baffled when such questions come up. They are barely considered legitimate. Yet on the fringes of respectability, there are mounting research studies on the power of prayer to help the sick. Since Quantum Healing, the first book, appeared like in the 80s, other studies have gone even deeper into the effectiveness of intention. Especially intriguing is a pioneering study of the native Hawaiian healers led by the late Dr. Gene Achterberg, a psychologist, a physiologist of the mind-body connection who was fascinated by anecdotes that native healers often did their work from a distance. So it was about distant healing. Here's how the Achterberg study worked, as described in Superbrain. In the year 2005, after a 2-year search, she and her colleagues gathered 11 Hawaiian healers. Each had pursued a native healing tradition for an average of 23 years. The healers were asked to select a person with whom they had successfully worked in the past and with whom they felt an empathic connection. This person would be the recipient of the healing in controlled setting. The healers described their methods in a variety of ways, as prayer, sending energy, good intentions, or simply thinking and wishing the highest good for their subjects. Achterberg simply called these efforts distant intentionality, DI. Each recipient was isolated from the healer while undergoing an fMRI of their brain activity. The healers were asked to randomly send DI at 2-minute intervals. The recipient could not have anticipated when the DI was being sent. Their brains did. Significant differences were found between the experiment periods and control periods in 10 out of 11 cases. For the sent periods, specific areas within the subject's brain lit up on the fMRI scan, indicating increased metabolic activity. This did not occur during the no-sent periods. Okay, so that's great. So we take that we take that with us. So then the silent and the active intelligence I was talking about. So to start with, here's a poem by Tagore, a Bengali poet. And listen to this. This is an example of the silent intelligence. He who can open a bud does it simply. One glance and the sap must stir. One breath and a flower flutters in the wind. Colors flash out like longings of the heart, and perfume betrays sweet secrets. He who can open a bud does it simply. One glance and the sap must stir. One breath and the flower flutters in the wind. Colors flash out like longings of the heart, and perfume betrays sweet secrets. He who can open a bud does it simply. So this is like an example of this silent intelligence. It is like this listening. It is not about the direct practicality of what is being said, yet it is an expression of it. It is an expression of intelligence. So here's some more. It takes each tiny event and weaves it into the tapestry of life. It gives meaning and purpose to everything you experience. It guides every action to its highest and best use. It breathes love into being. It favors evolution and progress. It promotes those outcomes that are the most life-supporting. So here the practicality then of this, say, how can you carefully be with this silent intelligence? What helps is meditation, calm and peaceful surroundings, lack of mental agitation, absence of stress, minimal distractions, self-acceptance and self-awareness. Okay, so here's another description given just to give an idea of something invisible that is strong and present. Here's an analogy that brings the quantum mechanical body into focus. Take a bar magnet and place a piece of paper over it. Next, sprinkle iron filings on the paper and jostle it slightly. What will emerge is a pattern of curved lines, one inside the other, that arc from the magnet's north to south pole and back again. You're familiar with this. You probably did this once. The overall design you have made represents a map of the magnetic lines or force that otherwise would be invisible, except that the iron particles automatically align themselves to bring out the image. In this analogy, we see all mind-body activity above the paper and the hidden field of intelligence below. The iron filings moving around are mind-body activity, automatically aligning with the magnetic field, which is intelligence. The field is completely invisible and unknowable until it shows its hand by moving some bits of matter around. And the piece of paper is the quantum mechanical body, a thin screen that shows exactly what patterns of intelligence are being manifested at the moment. There's more to this simple comparison than you might at first suppose. Without the paper to separate the two, the magnet and the iron could not interact in any orderly way. Try bringing a magnet close to some iron filings. Instead of forming regularly spaced lines, the filings simply clump shapelessly onto the magnet's surface. You can imagine this, right? With the paper in place, not only do you have an image of the magnetic field, but if you rotate the magnet, you can watch the iron filings move to mirror the new field that has been created. If you didn't know that there was a magnet, you would swear that the iron was alive, because it seems to move by itself. But it is really the hidden field that is generating these life-like appearances. Okay, so this is also all part of the of working to a climax in discovery of yourself. Wow, isn't that amazing? So then we had our little article that I sent you by PDF, or that you can download on the website, maybe tomorrow, maybe later. And this was also interesting because I give you one example of like an experiment, in fact, where you got part in. And one thing is that I said, like, what I'm writing down here, just to give you a feel what tachyons were, it's like what you read here has not yet been written. And of course that doesn't seem to be possible, but tachyons can, like being quicker than the light. It was already on paper before you wrote it. This is was kind of an interesting idea. So then you also have, I shared it with you, the Godfather syndrome. I mean, you saw it in the video too. The Godfather syndrome is like if time travel would be possible, then it would be that you, say, can travel back to the future, like we saw in the movies too, and kill your own grandpa. Kill the grandpa that is you. You would not be able to be born if that would be possible, and stuff like that. So you move back to the past. Indeed, I said it the other way around. Now you understand nothing of it. Anyway, so you get the idea. So you go back in time to kill your grandfather, while you could never have been born that way, but still you're here. Anyway, so this is also a thought elasticity moment. And so what can you do with this? See, the interesting part in healing, in quantum healing then, is that we believe certain things and we see them at work because we believe in them, but actually they have nothing to do with what is really occurring. So that can mean that you go through say a process of sickness, or a process of where something really seems to have occurred, and you live the consequences of it, while in reality that did not happen at all. But because you believe in this timeline, you believe in the identity that you think you are, that it happens to you. Well, you can imagine this. So then the interesting part then is, where does this all come together? Is in fact the question. Where does this come together, and how is this applicable to healing, to quantum healing? And this becomes really interesting, because in fact what you're looking at is already over. It's like even in Newton physics, it would be like that. Like, I see an object, okay, I got this object here, I see it, but for it to reach my eye, it can already be gone. Like, it is in fact the past that you're looking at. And we know this, of course, from lesson 7, from A Course in Miracles 2. I see only the past. I see already that, what is over. And I still base my whole identity and life on an idea that something is still there, while it's actually over. So this is then entering into the whole idea of awakening, which is then seeing that the world that you appear to live in, that seems to be so real to you, like, yeah, you prove that to yourself continuously, has in fact does not exist. Like, it is already over. It's like, to give it another, say, dimension, you're home in heaven. Like, you're home in heaven. Like, you're in the present moment. Your soul is in the present moment, residing in pure communication with every aspect of creation, in this 1-0 point that we call like now, this moment, or present, the present. And that's where it comes together. So it is like the same as what we read in the Miracle Principles. It's like, it looks like we're going backward in time. It looks like we're seeming to move through a timeline and all this. While actually, when Jesus resurrected, everyone resurrected. And you say like, well, that's not possible. Look at me, I'm here. It's like, well, you enter closer and closer to the end of time, and in fact come into an experience of resurrection, because that's your natural state. So talking about time travel and so these ideas of Tachyons, or seeing something that already has occurred, or the other way around, and becomes a little bit more like reasonable. And the same with healing then. It is like handing everything over to spirit is what we say during our healing meetings or so. Like, we're handing everything over to spirit to let it be used in a constructive way, in the sense of it is not ruled by time, just like the miracle principle. It's not ruled by time. So it's an out of time pattern. And it is, in that sense, then, it gives you an opportunity that you would not have in the next 2,000 years, but it's happening right now, because you're not ruled by the laws of time in the moment that you accept a miracle of healing. So, what needs to occur for you to enter into that? Well, you're on the way to it. You can experience it right now. Like, I'm not holding you back with any kind of definition to stop you from having a direct experience of that right now. And is that a possibility? Yes, it is a possibility. So keep your mind open and see that it's like this tachyon field of energy that we're talking about is then say, your Holy Spirit, being able to, say, do things that are not ruled by the patterns and the laws that we believe in that are related to the idea of time. In other words, the process of healing, the moment of healing, does not have to take a long time. It can happen right now, and it is happening right now as we speak. Like, that is the consequence of it. Unless you have ideas that that's not possible and all that. Like, your mind is then the only obstacle here. If you have ideas about this that are limiting, then you get the consequences of that. So in that sense, you see, like, you imagine it. But see, the imagining part of awakening is say, heavily misused in a certain sense by thinking that you can think yourself rich, or you can abundance, all these like meditations you can do to, in fact, say, really bring some money into your bank account or something like that. So that's not what this is being used for right now. It's like that is not being used that way here in quantum healing. No, this is more the realization that time is over. You come into this present moment, literally the particles, the material, the solidity of your body, the particles of this world that you believe in, and confirm the heaviness and the density of it all the time, can collapse into light instantaneously. And it's like it's a sudden shift from horizontal to the vertical plane. It is an out of pattern time interval that has nothing to do with the regular laws of time. So this, in that sense, is then very interesting and beautiful to see that at work, and seeing that that's reasonable, even with today's theoretical physics. Then it's still theoretical, because see, the whole thing is, as soon as you, as a scientist, get to the point where you see this at work, you come into the direct experience of what you're researching, you become one with the whole experience and with the experiment. You become the experience. You become the experiment too. So it's like that. That is the problem with. It's not a problem, but it's more like that happens when all comes together. When things are, when you realize that all is one, you cannot have that realization without becoming one. So you include yourself into this experiment in that sense. So you can do this experiment, but you end up being a complete and whole part of it, having an experience of oneness with it. Well, that sounds really easy when I say it like this. So that's really interesting. So to make a little resume, like a little repetition of what I just said. Resume? Yeah. So we see that our ideas about ourselves are determining a lot in what we think is possible and what we think is normal and what we think God is and all that, how that works. So to become aware of the forces that are at work, whether it's visible or invisible, in yourself, in your mind, in your life, in your experience of yourself, you see that coming into an awakening process, you see that spirit becomes your ruling, like you become spiritual man. So it becomes your ruling director, so to speak. So by using your mind in a whole different way, by in fact allowing it to die its oldness, to die its old ways, so to speak, but opening up for the moment, for this present moment to become complete and whole in your mind, healing takes place. You get experiences of a whole different nature. Timelessness. Say Joel calls it the fourth dimension. And he has some references to this too. Not many, but some of them. And they're great to read. I can read you one in a moment. So then, in our experience, is it possible to go faster than the speed of light? It would have been impossible, but it's definitely possible, because there is such thing as instantaneous communication. And that's not a trick. No, it is your natural soul communication. It's immediate. So there's no time involved whatsoever. And if you understand that, you probably collapse into the experience of it. So that's great. So that's how practical this actually becomes. So then quantum healing, to bring that back into our quantum healing then, is the recognition that there's only one moment going on. Like nothing happened before, nothing happens in the future. It is a present moment in which you recognize your vertical alignment with everything that is. So that's not a new definition, but that's an invitation to an experience. All right. So the reference that Joel gives us of timelessness, I love to read it because it's sweet. It's sweet to share. So it's a little bit, so it's probably 2 paragraphs. It is interesting because he uses the Bible even, and that's very well possible too, because there's a lot of quantum healing in that sense in Bible. That would be an interesting, say, another class, but yeah, I'll bring you some of it. The same power that operated in, through, or as Elijah to bring him his protection in the wilderness when he was being sought for execution, that brought him his supply of food in the form of cakes baked on the stone and ravens bringing food. A poor widow sharing from an endless source. Well, then it becomes necessary to know that the Master referred to this power and its timelessness in this wise. Before Abraham was I am. Before Abraham was I am. Was this power, this presence, this thing which Moses declared as I. Restate. Before Abraham was I am. And lo, I am with you unto the end of the world. Lo, I am with you until the end of the world. I will never leave you nor forsake you. And so, as you understand the timelessness of this presence and power, you will understand that at any time that it makes its appearance, any time that it makes its appearance in your experience, it is not because it was not there prior to that, but that its presence has not been realized or achieved. In other words, this infinite divine presence is with you now, but only through the development of truth in your consciousness, only through the realization of truth in your consciousness, only through the activity of truth in your consciousness will it become as real and potent in your experience as it was in the experience of our Hebrew friends of old. See, this is the fun part, and with having your quantum mind activated, reading the Bible. That's really quite something. So you discover things that you never read that way, like reading the Bible, and especially this part, from a perspective of timelessness and say quantum physics, in fact, like being in a whole different way, looking at it out of the old ways of physics, so to speak, the old ways of solidity, material, gravity, and all that stuff, so to speak. If you look at it with a new, fresh perspective, then you feel, like, at least that's my experience, how you feel the reality behind it all. It starts to make sense what is being said. And not that I understand it, but I have a reference to it that makes it that I recognize it. And of course I'm recognizing it because it's all about me in that sense. It's all about my true nature. And that resonates more and more and more and more to the reality, up to the point that it resonates so much that I start to, say, completely collide into it. And that's the offering, in fact. That's the possibility. So you can watch this again on a video, or maybe you got it. Maybe this resonated with you so much that you have like, yes, exactly. This was exactly what I needed to hear, or what I wanted to hear. So yeah. Thank you so much for your presence and being here, and it is so exciting to be on this journey with you and looking at all things from a different perspective, allowing new ideas to say confuse us, and having truth, say, reconfirm its presence. So yeah, that's really wonderful. So thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.